Hi and welcome to Hihu, and in this video we'll be looking at Until Dawn made by Supermassive Games from August of 2015. Normally at Hihu we look at older games and see how they hold up to modern standards, but in order to compare older games to newer ones I still have to keep up to date and play modern titles, so I figured I could still review newer games but look at them in a slightly different light. Now this game is just over a year old now, and we'll be looking at the game overall as what is the next generation and evolution from what was once point and click adventure games, but also comparing it to the other interactive titles that are becoming ever so popular. I've played through this game nearly 3 times now, and I can say I've nearly seen everything this game has to offer in terms of story paths and options. This game is your standard episodic story-based game, following in popular trend like the ever so popular Life is Strange and the Telltale games. Until Dawn takes place over the span of one night, on a mostly unoccupied snowy mountainside. 8 teenagers are revisiting a cabin after 2 of their friends died there a year earlier. The game is very self-aware of being a horror game, playing with your classic horror trope from your typical slasher scenes to more of the ambiguous poltergeisty segments. This game is essentially a mishmash between nearly every horror genre in one story, and I guess that's kind of a good and bad thing. And I'm sure there are horror fanatics out there that find this game to be a bit too much. I'm making recognition of other reviewers. At the time of release, they stated that the second half of the game got fairly out of hand. And I do agree, but that's what the game is. This game is one giant homage to the horror genre, and shouldn't be looked at being anything too serious. The game has you play the alternating role between the 8 teenagers as the night progresses, unlike the Telltale games that actually have puzzles and more conversation options. Until Dawn kind of takes more of a cinematic route, and that plays as a pro and con, I guess. The pro being you don't really have to use your brain much, generally walking up to a gate, realizing that it needs power, turning on the power, walking back to the gate and opening the gate. Unlike the Telltale games, which would have you do, let's say, the same puzzle, but that would be slightly more convoluted and you'd actually have to do a few more things to get that gate open. Another thing that the Telltale games do slightly different is give the player 4 options to pick in conversations rather than the 2 black and white options that you would get in Until Dawn. These interactive games have clearly come from the era of the 90s point-and-click adventure games, and whilst these games still exist and you see them more commonly in the tablet market, let's say Deponia and Broken Age, games like Grim Fandango and the older Telltale titles like the Monkey Island series are just some of so many that have influenced and shaped the interactive stories of today. Until Dawn is just one of many ways that interactive stories has evolved as technology has evolved. We can now fully graph actors' faces and graphically put together these cinematic cutscenes to which we can interact with. It's just a shame that the puzzle aspect is somewhat non-existent in Until Dawn. The game kind of has a final destination feel to it with these totems that you might find. From time to time you will come across these objects, and essentially they give you a premonition of an event that's going to take place in the future, being a death of a character or fortune, etc. And these were kind of a cool concept to include into the game, to see the possible outcomes that the characters might come across in the future. However, it felt a little bit weird that they didn't exactly react to them. I think Mike reacted once, but most of the time they just pick them up, see the future, and they don't blink twice, they just simply walk away. Until Dawn isn't exactly a game that you play for the gameplay. It's more of an interactive movie to which you can choose small options and participate within the boundaries of action sequences like running away or something like dodging obstacles and deciding whether to hide or not. And this is where the game might fall flat for some people. The gameplay goes for around 8 or 9 hours, and a lot of that time is just walking around listening to characters talk and picking small dialogue options in between. I like to look at games sometimes as when a good time would be to play that game, and I would classify Until Dawn as a really decent couch title. The first time I played this, I had 3 of my mates over and we just chilled out with a few drinks and just yelled at what we wanted to do, bitching about how much we hated particular characters. And in regards to hating characters, by the way, they do this on purpose, making the characters so unlikable so you can easily kill them off and not feel bad, or alternatively just watch them run into a tree every once in a while. The brilliance about this game is deciding whether or not you're going to let your characters live or die, and sometimes mistakes you might accidentally make or do things on purpose will have severe consequences. And this is where Until Dawn plays a little bit differently to, let's say, Telltale's The Walking Walking Dead. The reasons why I'm referencing this game is because it too is an interactive horror game, where the characters can die very quickly. But the thing about The Walking Dead is that you only ever play as one character, either Lee or Clem depending on the season that you play, and ultimately at the end of the day, everyone around you is going to die no matter what. It's just a matter of how long you can postpone their deaths. Until Dawn alternates the player between all 8 characters, making the severity of their deaths, well, more of a novelty, I guess. And I think that might be the intention. However, it's not as intense in terms of relationship building, as you are merely being a spectator and making minor choices in dialogue rather than properly building relationships between the characters. It felt a bit odd to me to building or destroying trust between characters when I would end up playing as that other character in, let's say, 30 minutes time. And I get that, let's say you might make another character mistrust another character and then later they do something that would result in that person's death. In The Walking Dead, you might be playing as Lee talking to, let's say, Kenny. You might be talking about something really mundane, but it will say Kenny will remember that. And that really hinged that there might be future consequences for saying that small thing. The relationship between the characters in Until Dawn felt rather superficial and merely as a cinematic drive between action plot points. Regardless of if this sounds like I'm bitching, I just really want to get the point that this is a much more relaxed casual affair, and if you're looking for something like the Telltale games, don't get me wrong, this is still a really fun experience and I recommend you playing this with some mates or people that aren't generally gamers. Until Dawn is very cinematic, often cameras are fixed and they also use slow tracking cameras. These really lend it to suspense that we're used to in, let's say, old school games like Resident Evil. The graphics overall are fairly decent, however not that breathtaking. Often facial animations kind of felt out of place and a lot of characters at times kind of had these really confusing, ambiguous, teethy faces. The acting, however, is pretty well done, having some notable faces cast among the mix. The script, however, is slightly more to be desired though, but with the overall playful horror themes, I think this was deliberate to give a B-grade script to add more of a casual fun feel to the game. The game varies in price depending on where you buy it and what country you live in, whether it's new or pre-owned. For those who own a PC, sorry guys, this one is PS4 only. As much as this seems like this is a game that you can only really play once, as the vehicle of the story is surviving until dawn, you'd be surprised how much you can actually get out of this game with multiple playthroughs. There's plenty of hidden clues and items that lend further to the backstory of the mountain and the events that took place a year before. This is a really fun experience, so grab a beer, have some mates over and share the controller. It's a really stupid ride, but kind of worth the cost. If you've liked what you've seen here and you want to see more, hit the like and sub button. Tell me what you think of Until Dawn and how you think it compares to other interactive games like the Telltale series. This is Shawnee Maurice from Hihu, thanks for watching.